What's the bargain I made with you? Remember the bargain in terms of leaving, don't leave the classroom, okay? Cell phones out of sight, food out of sight, all Cheetos away. And then we will give you a break. I promised you we would give you a break at about 10 to. I'll try and keep my promise. Okay? I told Dr. Kish about this promise, so he knows. Okay. As you know, there's been elections recently in British Columbia, in elections in New Brunswick, I believe. A lot of the news is about what's coming up in the U.S. So a real challenge and responsibility that particularly all of us have, but particularly your generation, is how to live your life as a citizen of the country you're living in. What's your duty? Whatever your faith tradition, what is it? How does that help you be a good citizen? And so we have a citizen of the world here. I think traveled more widely than I think almost anybody else on campus. I've seen a lot of cultures and experienced a lot of ways people are sensitive. So I'm grateful that Dr. Kish has taken some time out of his busy schedule to present to us today on how to be a good citizen.
All right. Good. I see you guys have a midterm exam, which means you're halfway through. We're all halfway through the semester. What have you learned so far in class?
How to get on track to success.
How to get on track to success. That's a good one. What else? I'm hearing how
Ways to study.
How to study? Okay. Yeah.
Music and wellness.
Music and wellness. How to read music. How to be well.
How to appreciate it.
How to appreciate it. Okay. Good. So you covered a lot of how-to stuff. Another how-to today. All right. Well, yeah. As Dr. McDowell said, today is how to be a good citizen. I have a quiz question. There's no points involved, but anybody know the significance of today? Other than you get to hear Dr. Kish give you a lecture. Division? Sorry? I will admit that if you're Seventh-day Adventist, I'll give you a
the holy place of the holiest places.
Okay, yeah. Great disappointment. Yeah. So what is the great disappointment about? Some of you are Adventists, you may not know. Yes.
I think, from what I've heard, is when
Yeah.
and they were just everybody like they sold their stuff, people got divorced, and they thought that Jesus was gonna come back, but he didn't. So that's why it's great.
Right. Very good. Very good. Yeah. The Seventh-day Adventist Church was pretty young at the time, and they spent a lot of time studying Bible prophecy. And they had a lot of dates lined up. They said, oh, this date lines up with this prophecy, that date lines up with that prophecy, which by itself is not a problematic thing to do, except that they misinterpreted one of them. And they said, it looks like Jesus is going to come on October 22, 1844. And so they withdrew from the world. They disengaged. They had been good citizens. They have been parts of their community, involved in civic responsibilities and activities and so forth. And they're like, none of that matters anymore. Jesus is coming. And they disengaged from the world. And here we are. Jesus hasn't come yet. And besides the great disappointment, there was also the great embarrassment then in the days afterward going back to their, fellow citizens in the community and saying, we were wrong, can we have our jobs back? Would you mind selling me back that plot of land that I sold you? And a bunch of stuff like that. Is there a question over here? Yeah.
Is it okay to say that something church was involved in this kind of, if the church wasn't reformed until after 1820?
Okay, like not formally organized. Yeah, it was a movement that was leading into Seventh-day Adventism, we could say. The Millerite movement. Yeah. Yes.
How many people, followed that movement? Is there like approximately?
I couldn't tell you. I'm not a theologian. What's that?
Good question, but
Yeah. Anyways, I just mentioned that because I don't know why. I guess because my dad was a theologian. That date sticks in my mind, and every year I'm like, oh yeah, this happened. Oh yeah, that happened. It just comes up, and I think it's kind of fitting that we're talking about it today. How to be a good citizen, because God wants, His followers to not just be. I don't know if you've heard the expression, someone who is so heavenly minded or no earthly good. That's the definition right there. People who withdrew from the world and weren't contributing, weren't making good contributions, weren't being a good influence in their community anymore, and we don't want to do that. So today, this is going to be part story time, Uncle Adam story time. I had a rocking chair. It will be part motivational speech and part class. This is a class. So, let's start with an activity. What does citizenship mean? And I'm kind of giving away a little bit of the answer key in that citizenship involves rights and responsibilities. So, what are some of the rights? Just think about, I don't know if all of you are Canadian citizens, but you're a citizen of somewhere. And what rights does that citizenship give you? Yeah. Protection. Okay, the right to be protected when you're in your home country, even when you're not in your home country. I've lived a number of places overseas, and the embassy says if there's any kind of strife in this country, we'll help you get out. That's a nice, protection. What else? What other rights? Yeah. The right to vote. I'm glad you mentioned that. I mean, Dr. McDonald did too. I am a dual U.S.-Canadian citizen. So, yeah, that's coming up. Anyone else? Or is that just a woo?
How's it work?
Okay, yeah. Any other rights, guys? Do you know what your rights are as a citizen? Yeah.
Right to bear arms.
The right to bear arms. In some countries, you have the right not to. Okay. Yes?
The right to travel
The right to travel? Yeah, I mean, a passport gives you the right. And some countries don't give you that right. They say you cannot leave.
And sometimes the right to work is dependent on citizenship, like long-term work is dependent on citizenship.
Okay, travel, work. Yeah, if you're not a citizen of the country where you live, you may not have a work permit. My wife's American, not Canadian. And when we first moved here 9 years ago, she couldn't work for the first year. Well, she got her work permit. Let's go to the responsibility side. What are the responsibilities of a citizen? Yes.
Vote.
Okay, it's a right and a responsibility, isn't it? We'll actually put it on the same line. Yeah. I will mention that at least in some countries, you have the right to protest government also if you're not satisfied with what the government's doing. I've never understood those who are really eager to protest, I don't like this policy, I don't like that policy, and they don't vote. The opportunity comes along, you can do something about it, and they don't. So I hand back to yeah.
Obey the laws.
Obey the laws. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen some of these TikTok videos and stuff going around where a person's like saying, well, you know, I'm a citizen, so I don't have to cooperate with the police, or I don't have to pay taxes, or yeah, you do have to obey the laws. Yes.
Jury duty.
Jury duty. Yeah, that's one that I don't know if you've ever been summoned, but it could happen. Any other responsibilities? Yes.
To serve your country.
To serve your country, you're speaking militarily, I would assume. Okay. All right. And each country defines who is supposed to do that, if it's voluntary, if it's required. Yeah.
Wait, is it?
Yes.
When I'm working, also your responsibility.
Okay. Would working be a responsibility? Yeah, I mean, if you like to eat, if you like a shelter, of course that's something you need to do. But yeah, even I suppose even the government needs people to work because who are they going to tax? If nobody's working. Yes.
Also agree for working because then that's how you put back into your community because you're saying how to be a good citizenship or a citizen.
Oh,
That
yeah.
ultimately goes into back to being true to your community because you have to put into your community. You can't just simply
Right.
stay there and do nothing. That's not really benefiting your life or anyone else's life. Making business,
Yes.
trading products or goods or simply cash to build something of your own. That is
Yeah.
already a step towards working and bettering your community and is a responsibility.
It's not just helping yourself, in other words, it's helping others as well. Hopefully, the kind of work you're doing. I mean, there are types of jobs you could do that help yourself and harm others. But hopefully, it's helping others as well. All right, good. So there are rights and responsibilities of citizenship. And we can put a few of them up here for you. The Apostle Paul, if you read in the New Testament, he had quite an adventurous life. He was a well-traveled person as well, and had a lot of exciting things happen to him. But he had Roman citizenship, and that was not immediately known just by looking at him. You couldn't tell, well, that's Roman. And in fact, he was arrested a couple of times and imprisoned. In one case, almost, well, he was flogged. In another case, he was almost flogged, he was almost stoned. And when they were about to beat him, he said, "Are you sure you can do that to a Roman citizen?" They're like, "You're a Roman citizen. We didn't know. Sorry. And so that was one of the rights that he was claiming as a Roman citizen. The right to no torture, whipping, or crucifixion. Romans crucified anybody else, but if you were a Roman citizen, you could still be put to death, but not through crucifixion. Also, you weren't supposed to be whipped unless you had gone through a trial and had been found guilty, and then I guess punishment is available to you. But if you had not been convicted, you couldn't be whipped. Whereas if they arrested someone who was not a Roman citizen, they could just beat them because they felt like it. Kind of intimidation tactics. But he had the right to a proper trial. He had the right to safety and travel across the Roman Empire. And at the time, the Roman Empire was pretty big. Covered a lot of, today we call countries. I guess they were countries then too, but they were considered provinces of Rome. And so, even if he was from this particular province, he could travel anywhere in the Roman Empire safely, or he should be able to. He could hold private property, the right to vote and hold office. But then, along with that came responsibilities, such as informing them of citizenship. I don't know if he withheld the information to the last second and was like, by the way, or if it just, didn't come up. But it was his responsibility to tell them if they had whipped him, and then he told them afterward, I don't know, like if he could have gotten in a different kind of trouble or something. It's important to be upfront about that. That was one responsibility. And another one is to represent the class to which you belong, to represent it well. So they had a class-based society. You have upper class, you have the politicians, you have the merchants, you have all these different classes of society, and you're supposed to represent your class well. What does a good merchant do? What does a good politician do? You don't want to bring shame or ill repute on your class so that people say, oh, all of those politicians, all of those merchants. So that's just a few of the rights and responsibilities that he had. So, if you've taken a class from me before, and I guess you're all first-year students, even then I see quite a few of you who are in my classes now, so that's a good thing. I'll just do a real brief timeline of my international experience. The red are the countries that I've lived in, the blue are the countries I've traveled to, and I need to color in Italy as of this summer. That's one new one I added. But I've lived in 7 countries, traveled to 55 plus. It's hard to add them up sometimes because borders change and countries dissolve and countries unite, and so. But this is kind of where I've lived and where I've traveled in the process of all those places I've lived. And I have a few stories about citizenship and how I experienced it and how it helped me. So I'll start off with Benin. Going back here, that is the small red sliver between Nigeria and Togo. Okay. So Benin, I spent a year as a student missionary when I was in college, about your age. My second year. That's me on the right here with the hair. There, looking very much like a Slavic gangster. Just need a tracksuit, gold chain. So I'm a U.S. citizen, I'm a Canadian citizen. I have a passport, but I also had a residency card when I lived in Benin, and I worked as a student missionary. And I worked with a fellow from Czech Republic. He was my partner. And we did, book sales. We'd go door to door, sell books to people, religious books. There was also a small church in the town where we were living, and we would preach from time to time, and responsibilities like that. Very beautiful country. But I got semi-arrested when I lived in Benin. I wasn't looking for trouble. I was 19. And we lived in the northwest part of the country, and in this rural area, and I had to go to the capital city to renew my residency card, and so I went down for a couple of days. I stayed in a missionary guest house, and I turned in my passport to the Ministry of Immigration or whatever it was, and they said, come back in 3 days, we'll have your visa stamped in there, we'll have your residency card ready, you can pick it up. So I had 3 days to kill. And I don't remember if it was this trip or another. I went to the capital a couple of times. It was like a 10-hour drive from where we live, so I couldn't go back home. So I was just trying to fill time, and I read Les Miserables in French for the first time. That was fun. Nice, big, fat book, but I had nothing else to do. And then I also went for walks, and I took my camera with me, and I enjoy photography. I enjoy looking at pretty things and stuff, and I was walking through the city. And I knew, because I had read before going to Benin, that you do not take pictures of government facilities. They're very suspicious that you're a spy, that you're planning to bust in or something. So I was like, okay, no government facilities. So I made sure that in my pictures, I was taking pictures of flowers and trees, the beach, just nice things. And I remember as I was walking down the street, and I took a picture of an interesting-looking tree. And immediately, a motorcycle stopped next to me, and 2 guys, just random citizens, said, give me your camera. I was like, no. They're like, give us your camera now. And I said, no way. And so they drove off, and I was like, that was weird, but okay, I'm good. 10 minutes later, I'm walking down the street, and I pass the police station, and I hear somebody shout, "That's him!" And the police ran out to the sidewalk. I said, oh boy. And they said, "Come with us." So I went in with them, and I said, what happened? What's this all about? And they said, "We asked the questions." Okay. So I sat down in this room, and they interrogated me. I mean, there was no beating, there was no, but they asked me a lot of questions and repetitive questions, like trying to see if I would change my story or if they could trip me up or something. What were you doing when these men stopped you? Taking a picture of a tree. Was there a building in your picture? I don't think so. And you guys remember, this is in the days of film, right? So I can't say, just show them, "Oh, here's the picture I took," It's a film camera. So they asked, why were you taking a picture of that? So I answered the questions. They kept repeating them. And then at one point, the guy says to me, "In your country, you can take pictures of whatever you want, right?" I was like, "Yeah." "Well, this isn't your country, is it?" And I didn't say anything. I was like, what do I say? And one of the guys who had stopped me on the motorcycle, he says, "Well, answer him." And I said, "I don't answer stupid questions." So that probably wasn't wise of me. But I was getting kind of annoyed and frustrated. So I'm thinking to myself, what is this all about? They haven't even told me. They're wasting my time. And finally, the police officer left, and I was just there with the two guys from the motorcycle. And I looked at them, and I was like, "Can you tell me what this is about?" And they said, "You took a picture of the president's house." I said, "I did not." "Yes, you did. I took a picture of a tree. Well, that tree was in front of the president's house." I was like, "What?" There was no sign. "This is the president's house." I mean, I'm walking down the street and I see Minister of Agriculture, and I don't point my camera there. Minister of Education, I don't point my camera there. There's no sign saying President's house. What in the world? So finally, when the police officer came back and they started asking me the same questions, I said, "Don't you guys have major crimes going on in the city that you could be focusing on? Like, why are you focusing on me?" And they said, "Give us your passport." I said, "I don't have it." "Why not?" I said, "Because I'm here to renew my visa." And I turned it into the Ministry of Immigration. And they said, "Oh, wow." And again, finally they came back and they said, "We turned your case over to the Ministry of Immigration. You have an appointment tomorrow at the Ministry of Immigration." I'm going to be deported over a picture of a tree. So I went back to the missionary guest house and I told them what was happening, and they set up a prayer vigil for me. And one of the missionaries, he says, "I'll go with you tomorrow." So the next day he went with me to the inside of the Ministry of Immigration. And in the minister's office itself, he sat me down and he said, "Now tell us what happened." And there's the minister, and there's all of his deputies. I'm like, wow, a 19-year-old teenager, with a Yugo cut, Slavic cut, haircut, and they're paying so much attention to me. So I told them what happened. They're all studiously taking notes. And then they said, "Is this your camera?" I said, "Yeah, the police took that yesterday and I thought I would see it again." I said, "Yeah, that's my camera." And they said, "Finish off the roll of film." "Right here?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I took 3 pictures inside the Minister of Immigration office. And they said, "We'll develop it for you and you come back tomorrow and we'll give it back to you." I said, "Okay." So they developed the pictures and I came back the next day and they gave me a stack of pictures and said, "Look through this and see if you see anything problematic." So I looked through all of them. No. So look again. No. And finally they said, "This last one, that tree you see." I go, "Well, where's the house?" He said, "Well, you see the wall behind it?" I said, "Yes. That's the compound wall." I said, "I'm very sorry, I didn't know." And so they took that picture away and they gave me the rest. And they gave me the negatives. And they let me go. So I actually have that picture again. But My citizenship, I'm pretty sure, protected me from my smart mouth. I probably shouldn't have talked back to the police officer. If I was a Beninese citizen, that probably would have started the meetings right there. But as a foreign citizen, they didn't want this to become an international incident, so my citizenship protected me. I'm not recommending that you use that and that you shoot off at the mouth, but my citizenship protected me. It gave me certain rights. I thought about maybe contacting the embassy, getting them involved. I got my visa a few days later. They gave me my passport back, and I went back to my post. And to this day, I should have put that picture in here, actually. I have a picture, the 3 shots that I finished off the roll of film in the minister's office. But anyway. So in that situation, my rights or my privileges were foreign citizenship, the unwillingness to get involved in an international incident, the right, I guess I could have contacted the embassy if I felt I needed to. That's a right that I would have had as a citizen, a U.S. citizen, a Canadian citizen living in Benin. I could have contacted the embassy for help. What were my responsibilities as a citizen? Especially as a resident in a foreign country, what was one of my responsibilities? Yeah, not to break their laws, right? To follow etiquette, to be respectful of authorities. I think I'm learning more now as I've matured. But I was a teenager once too. You know, sometimes you don't feel like it. So there's responsibilities and there's rights, privileges. Okay, one more story, and then we'll take a break. So in this situation now, I was living in São Tomé and Príncipe as the director of ADRA, which is the Advocacy Development and Relief Agency. We had a bunch of projects. São Tomé and Príncipe, in case you don't know, I'll go back to the map. These 2 dots right here. All right? These 2 dots, mountainous islands, Portuguese-speaking, beautiful. My wife, who grew up in Africa, had never heard of São Tomé and Príncipe until we moved there. She is a missionary kid who grew up in Malawi. Her parents were missionaries in Malawi. And so, São Tomé and Príncipe is a real country. I'm not making it up. Lived there 3 years. Beautiful place. Enjoyed it. ADRA had some really good projects. But South Africa opened an embassy in São Tomé and Príncipe about 2 months before I traveled to some meetings in South Africa. There were some regional meetings for ADRA directors and other personnel being held in South Africa. And I, as the country director, was supposed to go, and our board chair, who was the president of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in the country, was supposed to go. He is a São Toméan citizen. And our finance director, who is a Nigerian citizen, who was living and working in São Tomé and Príncipe, was also supposed to go. And so they went to the South African embassy, newly opened South African embassy in São Tomé and Príncipe, and applied for a travel visa to South Africa. I could arrive in Johannesburg and get a 90-day visa on entry just because of my citizenship. The countries that I'm a citizen of allow you to just show up and get a visa on arrival. Other countries, you have to have it ahead of time. So they got their visas ahead of time, and we all traveled. I took my wife and kids. They needed a break. They visited some friends and stuff while I was in meetings with these people. And so we arrived in Johannesburg on the flight together, all of us together, and we went to the immigration lines. And I'm holding my U.S. Canadian passports, my wife and kids. We got through quickly and easily, and we're waiting on the other side. Where are my colleagues? Where are my colleagues? Where are my colleagues? 10 minutes pass, 15 minutes pass. Where are my colleagues? We started going through the line together. I was looking, trying to see which booth they are at. I didn't even see them anymore. So I went and talked to a security guard, and I said, "Do you have any idea where my colleagues might have gone?" And he asked for a description. I gave him a description. He says, yeah, I think I saw them being taken into a questioning room. And I said, could I join them? And he's like, I'll check. So he went and he checked. He says, yeah, come with me. So I went, and there the immigration officers were. And my colleagues were in the middle of explaining that Sao Tome and Principe is a real country. And that South Africa has an embassy there. And that their visas are legitimate. The South African immigration authorities didn't even know that Sao Tome and Principe existed, nor that an embassy had opened there. They thought they were making this up and they were trying to enter the country fraudulently. And so they were having a really hard time explaining it. So I went in there and they had a big map of Africa on the wall, and I said, look at this, guys, right here. And I showed it, and they saw my passport, and they said, are they with you? And I said, yeah, they're with me. And I said, okay, go. My passport helped them as well. So, if I had not went and looked for them, they might have been deported immediately, might not have entered the country at all. What were my rights in that situation?
Help your colleagues and community.
To help my colleagues, yeah, in the community, for sure. What right did I have? I already told you one of my rights. Before even leaving on the trip. The right to expect a visa on arrival. And they couldn't, but I could. There's a hand over here.
I was going to say, you had the right to go into the, well, I guess you didn't really have the right, but you went into the interrogation room with them.
Sure, yeah. I had the right to go with them. And what were my responsibilities? Yeah?
Don't claim with fraudity, like, be like that this is a real place.
To use my knowledge? Yeah. To educate? What else? Back here in the back, he mentioned one of my rights, which is a responsibility as well.
Travel.
To travel?
Oh wait,
Or
responsibility?
yeah. Well, that was a responsibility. As country director, I was expected to travel. Yeah. But that wasn't related to my citizenship per se. What did you say back here? For my first right, you said my right was to
Community? Or
yeah, to help others, to use my privilege to help others. It's also my responsibility. I noticed on the list we made that some rights were also responsibilities. There were a couple that were rights and responsibilities. So one of those responsibilities is to use your rights to benefit others and not just yourself. All right? Okay. So, what does it mean to be a good citizen? Be a good member of society, even if you're not in an international context. In your own country, in your own situation, be a good citizen. One could abuse their rights and take none of the responsibilities. I have the right to free speech. I have the right to protest, but I'm not going to use any of my responsibilities. But you could also go to the other extreme and focus only on your responsibilities. I have a responsibility to, to follow the laws. I have a responsibility, but never focus on your rights. But I also have the right to protest those laws that I'm still following, and maybe I should if they're unjust laws. So you need a balance between rights and responsibilities, and every citizen has that. Now, we've talked about citizenship as a country-based thing, the passport and all of that. But after our break, we'll focus more on citizenship as being a good member of society, even if you don't have a passport, even if you're not traveling. Because there's a lot of parallels between that kind of citizenship and the citizenship we're talking about.
5 minutes, please be back at 5. Okay, not 6, 5. Okay? We need to start on time.
Can we grab our exams?
I didn't
Now,
let you read
after
through
that.
I don't think Brady has more. I'm gonna start so I don't know. But it's on me as well.
Pretty good.
Find it. Why is mine not up? Can I see? I know it's still up. Oh, because you're on the thing. It might be on the website, not on the app. Check the website.
Oh yeah, that's like my older sister. She was at that age. And then we did it with sister. I feel like the same thing.
I want to, before I give you some of the figures, on behalf of Dr. Donker and myself and Lisa, our assistant here, we're quite proud of you. You're much smarter than last year. Don't tell them. Okay? So 2 people, 100%.
Raise your hand. Oh, it's you?
7, A, 21, A minus. Okay. 22, B plus, and then 10, B, and then 5, B minus, and the lowest grade was actually a C plus, which is pretty high. So, we're not going to Dr. Donker and I are going to have to make a whole final We're merciful.
Okay, so that was the out of story time portion. This is a class though, so I have a list for you of what do good citizens do. A 6-point list. This is not the definitive, the authoritative. This is my version, I guess, but we'll go through each of these 6 things and they'll get brighter as I go through each slide. So don't like, why is this so pale? But trust God, trust the process. They always give their best. They don't cut corners. They're kind to themselves. They're kind to others. And they use their privileges to help others as well as themselves. They've already touched on. I told you it would get darker. Each slide is going to have it darker. So if you can't read, then don't worry. Okay, so what do good citizens do? They trust God. They trust the process. I don't know what's going to happen to you guys when you graduate. Everyone has a different experience, but I will just say that when I was your age, I had my life mapped out. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I knew the steps I was going to take. I knew how it was going to happen. And none of it did. And I'm so delighted. Because what actually happened is far more interesting than what I could have imagined. I mean, you think, the world is your oyster, that expression. You think, like, I can imagine a really great future for myself. You can't imagine some of the things, some of the options that are out there. I don't think there's very many 5-year-olds like, I want to be an anthropologist. It's astronaut, cowboy, what else? Like, you right? Those are the things that kids think about. When you get a little older, you're like, okay, the standard professions. Nurse, doctor, lawyer, those common ones. But the road less traveled can be very interesting. I majored in French, a bachelor's degree in French. And I also took pre-med courses. I know some of you are probably pre-med. Most of you are probably biology pre-med or wellness pre-med. or some sciencey related pre-med. I did French in pre-med. Why? Because pre-med is not a degree. It's a suite of courses. As long as you've taken those courses and you pass those courses, you can apply to medical school. So you can have whatever major you want. And I also have heard that there's an edge on getting into medical school if you show breadth. And so I was like, I'll major in French. French will be for fun, pre-med will be for my career. And I was going to be a reconstructive surgeon. That's a subtype of plastic surgeon. If I just say plastic surgeon, you guys get the wrong idea. Okay? Not nose jobs, not boob jobs, but like reconstruction for burn victims or cleft palate, that sort of thing. That kind of interested me, the intersection of art and medicine. And so that was my plan. And I executed that plan. I did 4 years of bachelor's degree in French, took all my pre-med courses, took the MCAT, passed with scores high enough to get into Loma Linda and the University of Michigan, and then decided not to. I just didn't feel, something didn't feel right about it. And I was like, well, okay, so maybe I'll take a couple of years off and think about doing something else. So I found a job. I worked for a job for 2 years in Detroit. Got married. My wife knew what she was going to do with her life. She's still doing the same thing. So I followed her for her job. And I, sorted it out. I eventually went to graduate school for anthropology and found it to be a fascinating discipline and a fascinating process. But then I also decided, okay, so anthropology, I also still want to work overseas. I still want to, maybe I'm not going to be like a reconstructive surgeon, in a hospital in the middle of nowhere, but I still want to work overseas in some capacity. And when it came time for me to do my dissertation research, I wanted to return to West Africa. I had liked Benin. I wanted to return to West Africa. I wasn't particular about which country, but I wanted to work somewhere. And through connections, someone who knows someone who knows someone, I ended up getting an internship with ADRA Guinea. First time working with ADRA. I was in touch with the country director of ADRA Guinea, and I said I'd like an internship, and she said, sure, come on over. You find your way here, you pay your own way here, but we'll provide a house, we'll provide a stipend, we'll provide a vehicle. You can work for ADRA half-time, and you can do your research half-time. So I went with my young family, my wife and my 10-week-old boy. And when I arrived, I said, so what am I going to be doing for my internship? And she said to me, you're the deputy country director. I said, what's that? It means you're second in command in the country. I'm the country director, she says, and you're the deputy country director. I said, but I've never worked for ADRA before. Ah, you're smart, you're a PhD student, they'll figure it out. Oh, and by the way, I'm leaving for my 1-month holiday in a week. You'll be in charge in the country. How's that for an internship?
Great internship.
Sounds great on the surface, but ADRA had 175 employees spread throughout the country, millions of dollars of development projects, staff all over the place. This was my introduction to ADRA. I would not wish this on my enemies. I had no idea what I was doing. And I knew it, and they knew it. But I sat in that office every day, and I tried to sound intelligent. Anybody seen Catch Me If You Can? Good movie. It's based on a true story. And Frank Abagnale Jr., the story is based on, one of the things he pretended to do was be a doctor for a while. Like, how did he operate? He didn't operate. He worked in a teaching hospital. And this was in the 60s when you get away with a bit more, I guess. But he worked in a teaching hospital, and he didn't know anything about medicine, but he wore the lab coat and he played the part. And what he ended up doing is he had, of course, medical students under his supervision who were supposed to be doing their internships, their rotations under him. And usually a medical student doesn't get a lot of hands-on experience. The trained doctor does everything he says, watch what I do and learn, watch and learn, watch and learn. Since he didn't know what he was doing, if a doctor came to him, like a medical student came and said, we have this case and I don't know what to do, like he would say, Imagine I wasn't here, what would you do? Well, I would probably do X, Y, and Z. Do that. And the students loved him. Like, this guy gives us hands-on experience. I'm not saying that you should pose as a doctor. But I basically took a note from that playbook for that 1 month while the country director was gone. I was like, what would you do if I wasn't here? Well, I'd probably do this and that and this. I empower you to do that. Go with my blessing. I didn't know if it would work any more than they did. But you know, the country office didn't implode. Actually, I think a lot of people know they have good ideas, but they lack confidence. Give them that confidence, you know? So, I was frustrated by that, but it ended up opening doors for me. Because I was deputy country director, I ended up being country director in São Tomé and Príncipe, and I actually knew more about ADRA, and I knew more what I was doing. It was because of that I got the opportunity. And one lesson I will tell you from this, the lesson is not to pose for something that you're not, but the lesson I will tell you, I tell this to my kids as well. When a door opens, walk through it. You know? Right now, my daughter's 16, and I'm leaning on her to get her driver's permit. I told my son as well. He's 19 now. I said, you know, when life says it's time for you to get your learner's permit, get it. When life says, you know, you're old enough to get your license, get it. Because otherwise, you're going to one day be 20 or 22, and life's going to expect you to get a job, and you will still have the backlog driver's license you never got, and you will also have a bunch of other things that will all land on you all at the same time. Life spaces it out. You weren't expected to do university level classes when you were 5. You are now. Life spaced it out for you. So when an opportunity comes, take it. Because then you can start to build your resume, build your experience, without having to put it all at the same time because you procrastinated. Okay? Life will spread it out for you, but take when it comes. So trust God, trust the process. My career has gone way different than I ever imagined, and it's been very rewarding. There I am in my country director's, office, looking all official and stuff. That's Guinea, São Tomé and Príncipe. Okay, good citizens. They also always give their best. I already told you about my French pre-med kind of double major, not really, since pre-med's not a major. But it is a lot of classes. I could have sloughed off in the French classes and be like, that's just fine. I'll focus on the sciences. It ended up that I got into a social science, anthropology, which is closely related to the humanities. And what if I had slacked off in my French classes? I probably would have struggled more doing a humanities social science for graduate school. But I went to the University of Florida, you can see up there, a really good school, a giant school, 50,000 students. The anthropology department alone had 45 professors. That's like what we have total here. One department. It was massive, massive, massive school. But I didn't struggle in a social science because I had given my best even to something that I thought was my backup plan. And it ended up being my main plan. So, always give your best. You never know when you're going to need it. Another example, when I was in graduate school, my major was anthropology. I did a minor, I guess you could call it that, in research methods. My advisor is the guru of research methods in anthropology. He's written the textbooks. He's like well regarded as the anthropologist to go to if you want to know how to do research. He knows everything about research methods and everything. And he insisted every one of my students is going to take a research and statistics course every semester at the University of Florida. I was like, oh my goodness, that's way more than I ever wanted to know. I could have slacked off and said, that's just the side thing, that's the minor. I'll focus on my anthropology courses. But I gave my best, and And I'm so glad I did. Because when I left ADRA, my next job was teaching research and statistics. Only. Not even anthropology. When I was in the Philippines, I taught at a university teaching research and statistics. You don't know, maybe if you're taking a minor, your career might come out of your minor. Don't slack off just because it's a minor. Do your best in everything. You don't know what you will need later on. And I've also then ended up being speaker at conferences and stuff. So always give your best. A good citizen always gives their best. Don't cut corners. So I already told you my father was a theologian. He was a pastor, but he also was a professor at the seminary at Andrews University. Okay, you guys, some of you guys have seen this video.
Yeah, we watched it.
I'm not going to show it to you again. Okay, that's fine.
Well done.
If we have time, I will. When do we get out?
Got 20 minutes.
5:30? Yeah. Yeah, it's like a 10-minute video. You can look it up. Oh, you showed it here already?
Yeah.
Oh, good. So you've all seen it. Okay. All right. Yeah, don't cut corners. So my dad didn't preach very much because he was busy professoring. He was teaching pastors how to be pastors at Andrews University. Once in a while, he would preach. And one of his favorite sermons that I was favorite also was about the devil's 99 blankets. He said the devil has 99 blankets. And he comes to you and he says, cheat just once. Or he says, steal that thing just once. Or say a lie just once. It'll help you so much right now. And you say to the devil, no, I couldn't do that. That would be wrong. He says, don't worry, I've got a cover for you. He says, look, I've got a whole stack of covers. I'll put a blanket over it. I'll cover it up. Nobody will ever know. Nobody will ever see.
It's not.
So you're nervous, but you feel like you really need to. So you do it once. And the devil covers it for you. Nobody knows. You cheated and you didn't get caught. So the second time the devil comes along and says, do it again. You're like, yeah, and you do it. The third time the devil says, do it again. You're like, yeah, okay. The fourth time, by the 10th time, you're volunteering to do it. And the devil just keeps covering it up. Keeps covering it up. Keeps covering it up. Let you lose count. He only has 99. You lose count. One day you do it the 100th time, and it gets caught and gets exposed. And at that point, the devil comes along and says, I need these blankets for someone else. And he pulls them all away. And now it's all exposed. So, obviously it's a parable. But the point is, just because you got away with it once doesn't mean you always will. It will catch up to you eventually. It's not a threat. It's not trying to scare you into good behavior. But don't cut corners. Don't plagiarize. Don't cheat. Do things the right way. Just because it's the right way. And also because we're bad at keeping track of how many blankets the devil has. Make it a part of your character, who you are, to do things the right way. It will pay off in dividends in the end, in ways that you can't imagine. So, be kind to yourself. Mark 12:31 says, love your neighbor as yourself. If you don't love yourself, you're going to be mean to your neighbor. And you will be fulfilling that, because you'll be loving the neighbor the same way you don't love yourself. In order to take care of others, in order to love others, in order to be kind to others, you have to be kind to yourself as well. And this is something that's hard for people to sometimes learn. They all know about what the Bible tells you to be kind to others, but it also tells you to be kind to yourself. We make mistakes. Forgive yourself. One of my big mistakes, I told you right after I finished my bachelor's degree, got married, didn't know what I was going to do with my career. I had just given up on the idea of medical school. And my wife knew what she was going to do, so I followed her to Detroit. She got a job teaching at an elementary school there, and I just looked for whatever job I could. And because my major was French, I got a job with a company called Global LT that does language translations and interpretation for other businesses in Detroit. So if you have, if you have a visitor from from Toyota, who's coming to visit Ford plant and wants to meet with the high-level executive. They need an interpreter from Japanese to English. That wasn't me. But if they needed help with French, I can help with that. Or if they needed, they have a new model of car, they come out with a user's manual, we need somebody to translate this paragraph into French. I can help with that. So it was kind of a fun job. It was using my degree. And I worked there for about a year. I made a big mistake, which I'll tell you about. It was coming around to my wife's birthday, and it was near the end of the workday, and the internet was still young and new, but we had, we had some stuff. And so I was like, what should I get her for her birthday? I should probably bring something home. I was like, oh, I'll get her some smelly lotion. She'll like that. Something, bath salt, or I don't know what, So I like, so where's the nearest Bath and Body Works? So I Googled, where's Bath and Body Works? What I didn't know at the time is that Bath and Body Works and Victoria's Secret were joined together as one company. And when you go to the Bath and Body Works homepage, there you go, right there on your screen, right as my boss walked by. Oh. Yeah, he just kept on walking. He says, Adam, we don't look at porn at work. Oh my goodness, I was mortified. I was just trying to find the newest Bath and Body Works. I was mad, in fact. I had been humiliated, and he was wrong. I wasn't looking at porn at work. I was looking for the nearest Bath and Body Works. He was actually factually wrong. But I was wrong in how I handled it. I jumped up out of my chair. I ran after him, charged him in his office, and I chewed him out. My boss. My boss. I said, you were wrong. I wasn't doing that. This is what I was doing. How dare you go? We had a shouting match. A few months later, I lost my job. I'm not saying they're related, necessarily. Half the company was eventually let go because this was around September 11, 2001, when the economy crashed and a lot of companies laid off a bunch of people, and there was also probably some seniority concerns as well. I wasn't a senior person, I was one of the new employees, easier to let the new ones go. But I wonder sometimes if I had handled that respectfully, if I had handled that kindly, if maybe, like I said, he was factually wrong, but I was wrong in how I handled it. And I wondered about that for a while. After that, it was hard to find another job because everybody was laying off at that time. And I was unemployed for about 6 months. And I kicked myself, and I berated myself. I was like, man, that's stupid me, stupid. That doesn't do anybody good. You acknowledge your mistake, you admit it, you apologize if you can, you ask forgiveness, and you move on. Be kind to yourself. You will make mistakes, you won't do things perfectly, but forgive yourself. And that helps you be kind to others. It's easier to be kind to others if you're kind to yourself. When we lived in Benin, so that's how you can tell these are original pictures, because these are like scanned from poor quality prints. But when I lived in Benin, Pavel and I, near the end of our year, we wanted to go visit the national park about 2 hours away. We'd been there the whole year and not gone to the national park and seen anything, so we borrowed, this is the actual car, we borrowed from a missionary friend, and we drove to the national park. It took a couple of days to see some animals. And Pavel didn't know how to drive, and I did. And it's a standard transmission, manual, first gear, second gear, blah, blah, blah. And the missionary who lent it to us said, oh, by the way, the alternator's shot. So to start the car, you need to push start it. If you've ever push started a standard, yeah, okay. But once you start it, then don't ever let it stop, because it'll be hard to get it started again. And so he says it won't idle either. If you take your foot off the accelerator, it'll just die. And as you know, like if you learn to drive on a standard, you're supposed to use your left foot for clutch only, and the right foot is for accelerator and brake. Fun fact, the same is true for automatic. If you're one of those that uses your left foot for the brake, right foot only, brake, accelerator, okay? Step on your left foot if you need to learn that. But there's a reason you're supposed to do that, because you aren't supposed to ride your brake. Okay, so habit is when it's time to brake, you take your right foot off the accelerator and you push the brake, right? Because you need your left foot to put it in neutral and take it out of gear. We were driving along through the national park. We saw some nice animals, saw elephants, saw some hippos, saw tons of antelopes and baboons, saw some lions. And what was fun is that as we approached the lions, I'm like, don't take your foot off the accelerator. So I'm sitting there revving the accelerator so that the engine doesn't die. And we're rolling towards the lions, and my left, I take my left foot, I push the clutch in, I put it in neutral, I take my left foot and I push on the brake while I'm doing You know what that sounds like to lions? It sounds like a challenge.
Oh boy.
They got up and rushed at the car and stopped right in front of the bumper. And when they saw that the car wasn't afraid, we were afraid. But the car didn't look frightened. So they gave up, turned around, and walked off.
Okay,
Heart beating. So about 10 minutes later, we were driving along, and a baboon darted in front of the car. And instinct, I slammed on the brake with my right foot, and the engine died. And I was like, how far away are those lions? So Pavel and I got out, checked the bushes, we got out, push start the car. We had a park guide with us, and in the car, and so he got out and helped push start the car as well. It wouldn't start. Pushed it, jammed it in the gear, it wouldn't start. We tried it 4 or 5 times, it wouldn't start. And I'm like, oh man. So, what are we going to do? Obviously the car needs a mechanic. So, we asked the tour guide, how often do cars pass along this road? He says it's not a very common one. This is the low season, maybe once a day. Oh boy. How much food do we have in the car? We have some crackers, we have some raisins. More important question, how much water do we have in the car? Half a 1.5 liter bottle. Between 3 of us. And it's hot. Sunshine. We wanted the safety and protection of the car. So we stayed in the car, rolled the windows down, and sat in the shady part as the sun moved, and we were sitting there praying and waiting. Like, what can we do? When's the next car going to come along? About an hour later, we were lucky. We heard an engine coming along. So we jumped out and waved it down. It was a big army truck full of park rangers. And we said, thank you, Jesus. But sometimes the Lord's answer to prayer still comes with complications. It is his answer to prayer, but it doesn't look like it should. We said, could you tow us to the gate? We need to get to the gate, and is there a mechanic? Oh yeah, there's a mechanic shop right outside the park gate. Excellent. Can you tow us there? No problem. They quoted a price, I can't remember what it was in West African francs, but like $150. What? $150. To tow us to the gate? Yes, $150. Pavel and I counted the money. We don't have that much. Okay. They hopped in the truck and started driving off. What? So I jumped out and waved them down, shouted. They stopped, and I said, we need a tow. And they said, $150. And I said, we don't have that much. And started driving off. I'm like, wait! So they stopped. And I was like, I'm not negotiating. I really don't have that much. And he said, sounds like a you problem. They didn't say that. It wasn't a thing yet. And it's not a thing in West African French, but that's basically the message they gave us. I'm like, a you problem to me. And I was like, okay, what are we going to do? Is this God's answer to prayer or not? Okay, so finally I said, listen, you've got $70 between the 2 of us. We'll give you everything we have. You tow us to the gate. And once our car is fixed, and we drive the 2 hours back to our home, we can take the tour guide with us. We have more money at home. We can get you the rest of the money, and we'll bring it back to you. And I said, deal. They hooked us up, towed us to the gate. We turned the car into the mechanic, and he said, come back tomorrow. This is evening now. We are completely out of money. At least we're not in the park anymore. We don't know what we're going to do, where we're going to go. So Pavel said, you know what? There's a missionary family in town from another denomination. The wife's American, the husband is Czech, same country I'm from. He says, I've never actually met them, I've only communicated by email. Let's pay them a visit. I said, okay. So we walked across town, we asked, where is the missionary compound? They told us, we walked there. It was dark by now, we knocked at the gate, the guard says, who are you, what's your business? We told him, he's like, gone to sleep already. I'm like, it's an emergency. He's like, okay, I'll get somebody. So he went and he woke up a lady. The lady came, and we threw ourselves on our mercy. We said, this is our situation. And she says, come in, I have a guest house. She brought us in, she put us in the guest house, fresh linens to sleep on, showers, free breakfast in the morning. She lent us money to pay the mechanic so that we could get home. And we're like, what do we owe you? She says, nothing, just the money from the mechanic, that's it. I'm like, no, seriously, what do we owe you? And she says, nothing. Pay it forward. Do something nice to someone else. She says, I've been helped many times and I've been in trouble. Pay it forward. Help someone else. Be kind to someone else. And we had that opportunity, my wife and I, when we were in Guinea, because we had some colleagues from Zimbabwe come and join us at Adra Guinea. They were brand new, they didn't know anything, they didn't know anybody. And we took them under our wing. We said, stay in our house, we'll show you where the good shopping is, we'll show you where there's, where to buy this, where to buy that. And we were able to help someone else because we had been helped. So be kind to yourself, and then be kind to others. Lastly, good citizens use their privileges to help others as well as themselves. I already told you the South African visa story, just really quick. Another time I was transiting South Africa, traveling somewhere, I had just passed through the security gate, and I overheard someone, one of the guards shouted out, does anybody here speak Portuguese? Like, I do. Saw my passport. You do? I was like, yeah, I work in a Portuguese-speaking country. He said, what is this guy saying? And there was a Chinese man working in Angola. He spoke Chinese and Angolan, Portuguese, but he did not speak English. And he was saying something to the guard didn't understand it, so I interpreted for them. And finally I told the guard, he says that he's gone to security already, but he doesn't have a cell phone. He thinks he left it back in the waiting room. Can he go back through security to get it and come through again? It's like, oh yeah, no problem. Very simple thing. But I used my language skill to help someone else. I could have said, I'm in a rush, there's no time. But it was a simple thing I could do. And I used my benefit for someone else. So, in summary, good citizens, trust God, or trust the process. Let life take you where it will. Always give your best, because you never know when you're going to need it. Don't cut corners, such as preparing to leave before the lecture is over. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and use your privileges to help others as well as yourself. Last slide. Success depends more on character than accomplishments. So focus on being a good citizen and watch how life unfolds for you. And my plug for international studies, if you're interested in being a good citizen internationally, join our major. If not, you can at least take some classes. We have a good track record. All of our graduates have gone on to be good citizens. None of them are mercenaries. They work in the UN. They work for international organizations like ADRA. They work for the government. There's a lot of good opportunities. So that's just my plug for international studies program and for my classes. But whatever you choose to do with your life, be a good citizen. That's my motivational speech for you today.
Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Come back to your midterm. And we'll see you Thursday.